All right, this is a Kalish Blades socket kukri overview. I haven't seen any videos on it online. Let's get this out of the way. Let's reproduction smash it. Let's get the shield knife and tool bob out of the way. WSI Ranger, Puma White Hunter, cold steel kukri. Kukri from Nepal, Ankola kukri. And let's take a look at the Kalish Blades, or Kalish, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Kukri from Nepal. It is interesting. It has some really interesting things to it. Has this 4-prong. I'd removed it off of it. It's like a dangler upon a dangler upon a dangler, which is a very interesting idea. Unless you want it low. I do like that 4 button snaps are good buttons. It's interesting, but like that's the way it came. Wow. Right? Wow is all I could say. So you could attach it with this dangler. You could attach it here. You can attach it here. You can also attach it here. Lots of options. That's, I don't know, low rider style, I guess. But it's interesting sheath concept. I do like that button attachment, because where I found that works out really well is if you're attaching it to a vertical strap, such as like a chest rig, like the saw rig made by Sojourn Gear that I designed with brother Cody. Well, my input, he did the actual layout. So but that or an AK chest rig or whatever, if you want to run a knife in the front, you can use that type of thing to strap it to it, and then it'll ride between you and the chest rig. Works pretty good. I've also done that with the Hill People Gear chest rig. Use that with this model as well as their buoy model. So it's an interesting blade. You can see the cami mark is what's the Star of David. High carbon steel, spring steel, probably made from a leaf spring. There's their emblem. I was looking for their card. They sent 2 cards in the package. Yeah, I had to wait months for it. I bought this in my own money. This is not, I get 0 dimes from YouTube or knife companies or whatever. Honesty and application. It works very well when you're crossing multiple genres. It is a socket knife. So I have a whole series on my Patreon page on socket knives, and I don't think it's embraced enough. Everything from the cold steel mini Bushman on, and the Matagis, like this Matagi here, which is a very extremely useful survival knife. It is system, actually. Even the sheath is a system. But I digress. The Kalish Blades socket kukri, so you can put a handle on it, and there's a hole for a screw, is a very formidable weapon. The idea of a spear, and the acronym SPEAR, with starting the S is standoff and the R is relationships. I'll let you guess what's in between it in my systems. This type of blade is extremely useful, and one of the problems with traditional style kukris, and there's lock, unlock position, is that the wooden sheaths, the frogs are an add-on, and it doesn't really fit well to Westerner carrying systems. That's one of the reasons for years the cold steel version with its sheath not having some funky other thing, and this one's been painted and used for a couple decades. has been a mainstay, taking it around the world as my chopper primary blade defensive tool. It has some different things with it, but this video is not about it. But the sheath system is superior for attaching than a traditional Nepalese Khukuri when they start talking web gear and tactical stuff, etc. More in the lines of what I would carry, plus being able to take it on and off easily. That design, way ahead of its time, really, in a lot of regards. Now, beware, there's fake versions out there. So let's talk about this version. This is its own thing. Kydex sheath, all kinds of. There's a drain hole, which is awesome. This whole thing, this situation here, take off what you don't need, right? Like I took this dangler off and used this piece, but it gives you an enormous amount of options. You could take this, mount it this way for small in the back carry, or attach it to other gear. It is one of the most interesting sheath setups I have seen. I purchased their buoy socket knife, which I really love the utilitarian function of it as a big knife. It is a good big knife. That's a socket style. I had them with the leather wrap because it gets cold up here, and that's something people don't think about with their hand guards. Draw knife function. This has more of a abrupt angle, very similar to the Condor Khukuri, which I'm not the biggest fan of. You can see when you have more of a longer angle, it's not as acute, and this leaf pattern blade is has more of a flat ground, a different amount of belly. This was just used to peel some logs yesterday, so I could clean it up. So a lot easier draw knife function with the traditional Khukuri angle than this, although it can work. You just have to angle this way. See, it drops way more. The drop is more pronounced, but the point is more center too, so that kind of helps it in the spear function over a traditional Khukuri. The handles are rather large. I have extra large hands. I'd say if you have smaller hands, it might feel pretty big for you. I do like the fact that they didn't put a a cut right here, because I've had that cause issues before with catching on stuff. So you have a full useful edge, which is good. It works really good static. When the blade's static, a lot of techniques, you put the blade static and you pull the material across the blade. That's where this one really shines, because that point stabs really well into the material like a tree, and you can just drag the material on it to make your feather sticks, etc. It works exceptionally well for that. Lots of belly and enough of an angle if you use the crook of the arm techniques with the point for doing your fine work. Which when I teach a class, I use a big knife. That's one of the techniques I show people, because I learned it all around the world. Down Central South America, they use that with machetes, and they'll be peeling stuff, picking their fingernails with the fine point, and still have plenty of control over the blade when you put it under the crook of your arm. And this one really, even for some boring, if you look, with whatever your cubit size is, but it has a lot of control to push the point into things if you're trying to make a hole. So very functional in its design. It is high carbon steel, so you're gonna have to use some knife wax or ballistol on it fairly regularly. One of the persons on the last question asked if I had done it, used any of the Montana Knife Company knives. No, I have not. The types of knives I like to use never seem to be in stock, so it just hasn't lined up. But they do have a knife wax, which is a really good idea in northern climates for stuff like this, because the wax, food grade wax that Montana Knife Company has, will keep a lot of that rust at bay. And being around salt water, these type of things definitely will rust. The spine has a very flat ground edge to it. So for any of you that do your ferro rod striking that way, definitely would catch on that, as well as using the blade, the back of the blade, this portion, as a scraping tool, which I use a lot with making arrows and spear shafts, etc. A lot of times you just stick the blade into a stump, and then you can use that fine edge to get super fine shavings that will even catch a spark themselves. The Bowie version of this really, I think, is one of the pinnacles of the socket knives that this company out in Nepal has. I gave it to our top student from the last classes that we did, because it's an excellent tool. This is an excellent tool too. I've got it earmarked for a brother. He doesn't know it yet. Excellent tool. Can do the overall use of a kukri is small hatchet, big knife, the machera. This video is not really about the overall uses, because there's just so many for any blade, and it kind of breaks the myopic paradigm. I know when I released the video with the Shield Arms Bob, the owner's like, well, it's not technically our hunting knife, it's our survival knife. I go, well, what type of knife's a survival knife? All knives are. So I kind of smash myopic paradigms. That's kind of my deal. If your knife have a rangefinder on it, and it's a tool, right? And they didn't send me anything for free. People have asked me for good, well-made socket knives, which that is hit and miss in today's market for whatever reason. I'd love to see some good custom knife makers make good smaller socket knives, but the Khukuri from Kalish Blades, their Khukuri socket knife is excellent. It's a good chopper, it's a good Khukuri. If you put this on a staff, and now you have something that's a formidable weapon. Spears kill extremely fast. It's funny, it's like people emote over spears as a tool, and like they were trying to pass a law up here where you could hunt with them, which a bunch of people emoted, said, well, I wound animals. Not any more than arrows. You have to get closer, but you have a 7,000 grain broadhead? No? Well, come on. It's funny because it was like, why use 110 grain broadhead shooting fast? It doesn't use hydrostatic shock to kill. It's the blade. It's blood loss. That's how arrows work. And if you get something like this into a predatory animal that's coming after you, that's the whole idea of the Matagi bear hunters in Japan. Because firearms weren't as available and not as reliable, they would use a spear. And many tale of the bear hunters of Japan having their lives saved with having that spear, and the bear, as it charged them, it'd run itself over into the blade, which is a parable in and of itself with predatory animals. And so if you look at socket knives, it's one of the genres I don't think people embrace enough, because a spear is a serious upgrade in a survival situation in many ways, other than this Matagi here. This is the best survival knife function wise. It's here. Why? It's easy to affix, to provide standoff with reach, as well as a fulcrum for chopping. When you put a good handle on this, it acts very much like an axe in its function, and gives you an enormous amount of capability and capacity in a very simple system. This sheath isn't exactly simple, but you can take off what you don't use, right? But check out Kalish Blades out of Nepal. They have some interesting offerings. It's, like, oh, buy American. Sure, show me some American knife makers that are making socket knives. They're hard to find because Americans don't see the utility of a spear, and even a short added handle changes the geometry and the force that you can put to bear. Look at the assegai or sagi, depending on how you pronounce it, from Africa. It revolutionized warfare, and in close quarters, spears and short swords are extremely effective in meeting your survival needs and your personal protection needs. In a lot of countries where they can't carry firearms, they carry a big knife due to economic as well as legal constraints. I just saw a thing recently where they were banning knives in Scotland again. It's silly. It's a basic tool that we use. I think the socket knife, something that's lasted for thousands of years, is technology. People need to go back and embrace it more. Of course, with stuff like the cold steel Bushman's, quality's changed quite a bit since they've changed hands, in my experience, having them use them in classes for years. But you might have to look overseas for a quality socket knife, simply because our culture hasn't embraced the value of being able to turn something into a spear or an extra handle quickly, because that's a game changer. Just ask yourself, what would you rather have against a charging bear? A smaller knife, lashed to a stick, or something that's firmly fixed to a stick. That's a no-brainer, right? So take a look at Kalish Blades. I'll put a link in the probably the comment section if you want to know more about the systems that I teach, survival applications, weapon systems. I'm beholden to no brands. Look at the description and the links there. You'll see links to my page, Patreon, as well as to Borosaurus Rex's. They do these things to kind of break you out of your Western myopic paradigms and start embracing socket knives and kukuris and technology, blade technology around the world that has stood the test of time. What's a survival knife? The one that you have with you, right? Read the channel description. It's the one you have with you, right? Everyday use, everyday carry trumps a good idea for you. If you won't carry something this big, you need something smaller, right? And that's now your survival knife, your tactical knife, So beware of the charlatans of commercialism. They push the 12 C's or 10 C's of commercialism, of kit. Figure out what works for you that you're actually going to carry. Stuff like this when you're going out into the field, definitely force multipliers. Weight-wise, lighter than an axe, functionally very close to an axe, other than the frozen wood test is the hardest thing for some of the leaf spring style blades, and 38, 50 below, that's where an axe is superior. But for most people in their 90%, something of this nature, the big knife, the Machera has stood the test of time. You can see the copies of that from that's in museums, and a lot of them have a Khukuri style blade. And you can meet a lot of your survival needs with a big knife, and especially one that's a socket knife such as this. So I hope this finds you well. Embrace the blade system, embrace getting out and utilizing your tools. Get kit wet, and you start to see the good attributes, and learn how to use a big knife as a small knife. That's another part of that skill set, which I think has been lost because people don't have a relationship. They don't know blade, K-N-O-W, all caps, have a relationship with the tool. The relationship with the tool is more important than the tool, or whatever myopic paradigm the manufacturer put on it too. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Well, I have to use my special golf club for this or this. Come on, man. It's whatever one you have with you, right? And something like this, this is a very formidable weapon. Extremely formidable in close quarters. You don't have to go far to look at the awesome, some of the best soldiers in the world are from Nepal, the Gurkhas, and they carry a Khukuri. It's one of the still a modern army soldier implementation of the short sword is with the Gurkhas, and of course the Philippine Scout Rangers and Marines with the Ganunting. So those are still stood the test of time, outlived the saber even, and so we call that a clue in the intel world. You might want to pay attention to the short swords that are actually still being used by modern soldiers, because they have a use. More everyday use, everyday carry trumps a good idea fairy. Check out Kalish Blades. I'll put a link in the comment section. I hope this finds you well. And look at all the different options on how you can carry. That's a lot of choices, right? Isn't that cool? Having lots of choices. I've never seen that snap system like that before. That's a new one even for me. Well, 4 snaps to snap it. That's something that is really cool. And other cultures, when you embrace their ways of thinking, it broadens your horizons, so you're not so linear Western Greek. You know, Hebraic, Asiatic ways of thought are circular, and more utilitarian, I have found, than the Western or myopic paradigm of their special golf club for their special thing. It's great because we're spoiled and we have wealth, so we have all these things. But beware the man with one knife, because he probably knows how to use it too. And if it's a socket knife, they have a spear as well. So carry rucksacks, not feelings bags. And I hope you find perfect peace. Shalom, shalom. See you soon.